Remove it, now. Judge Marcus Sinclair's fist crashes onto the bench. Aria Harrington stares back from her wheelchair, bronze star glinting under the harsh courtroom lights. Your Honor, the witness? Did I stutter, Counselor? Sinclair's face reddens. That medal comes off or she's held in contempt. Silence. 200 people hold their breath. Aria's hand moves to her lapel. The worn bronze star, 11 years of weight behind it. She unpins it, places it down. Clink. Sinclair smirks, leans forward. Stolen valor is a federal crime, Miss Harrington. The prosecutor shoots up. Objection! Overruled. Sit down. In the gallery, Admiral Hugo Patterson checks his watch. 17 minutes until he destroys this man's life. What Sinclair doesn't know, that Bronze Star came from Operation Seahawk. 3 dead teammates. Failed M47 helmets that should have stopped standard rounds. Titan Defense paid him well to silence witnesses. He picked the wrong seal. If you believe justice should always prevail, type honor in the comments and let us know where you're watching from. The imposing granite columns of the Richmond Federal Courthouse cast long shadows as Aria Harrington navigated her wheelchair up the accessibility ramp. Her movements carried military precision, spine straight, shoulders squared, eyes scanning for threats that no longer existed in civilian life. The morning air held traces of the James River, triggering memories of different waters, different missions. She pushed them down, focusing on the manila folder in her lap. Inside, her meticulously prepared analysis of Titan Defense's M47 combat helmets, equipment that had failed catastrophically when it mattered most. 3 good operators dead because executives cut corners on ballistic testing. Ms. Harrington. Jackson Whitley, the young prosecutor, extended his hand as she entered the lobby. Thank you for coming. Aria studied his face, earnest but inexperienced. Too clean, too hopeful. He'd never seen real consequence for corporate negligence. Your testimony could break this case wide open, Whitley continued, walking beside her wheelchair toward the elevators. Titan has the best defense money can buy, and Judge Sinclair? He lowered his voice. He's been favorable to defense contractors before. I've reviewed his record, Aria replied evenly. The elevator opened to chaos. Reporters clustered outside courtroom 7, cameras flashing. Corporate lawyers in $1,000 suits huddled near the entrance. Military personnel, some in uniform, others in civilian clothes, but unmistakable in their bearing, filled the hallway. The case against Titan Defense had drawn every player in the military-industrial complex. Aria positioned herself at the prosecution table, her navy blazer concealing most of the scarring along her neck and left shoulder. Nothing could hide the wheelchair, but the only hint of her past was the bronze star on her lapel, a quiet testament she'd worn every day for 3 years. All rise for the Honorable Judge Marcus Sinclair. The courtroom stood, all except Aria. Sinclair's entrance commanded attention, silver hair perfectly styled, patrician features radiating authority. His pale blue eyes swept the room, lingering on Aria's seated form with something that might have been recognition or contempt. Be seated. The proceedings moved with practiced efficiency. Charges read. Opening statements delivered. Titan's lead counsel, Theodore Morrison, presented his case with polished confidence. This lawsuit was an attack on American defense contractors who had proudly served the military for decades. When Whitley called Aria to testify, she felt the shift. 200 pairs of eyes tracking her movement to the witness stand. The bailiff approached to assist, but she waved him off, navigating her chair with the same precision she'd once used clearing rooms. State your name and occupation. Aria Harrington, security consultant specializing in military equipment assessment. Morrison stood immediately. Objection, Your Honor. We challenge this witness's qualifications. Judge Sinclair nodded. Proceed. What followed was systematic demolition. Every question about Aria's expertise met Morrison's objections, every answer cut short by Sinclair's rulings. Ms. Harrington. Morrison's voice dripped condescension. Exactly what qualifies you to evaluate equipment used by our nation's elite operators? First-hand operational experience. As what? A factory inspector? Chuckles from the defense table. In combat environments, Aria answered calmly. What Morrison didn't know was that Aria's assessment of the M47 helmets came from watching Lieutenant Vincent Beaumont's head snap back when a standard 7.62 round punched through ballistic material that should have stopped it cold. From seeing Petty Officer Rodriguez collapse when shrapnel penetrated armor rated for fragmentation protection. From feeling her own helmet crack when debris that should have deflected left her unconscious for 6 hours. She'd worn those helmets, trusted them, buried teammates when they failed. Your Honor, Morrison pressed, if the witness cannot establish her credentials, her opinions are merely speculation. Sinclair leaned forward, his attention fixing on Aria's bronze star with laser focus. Indeed. This court requires verified expertise, not costume jewelry. In the gallery, Admiral Hugo Patterson checked his phone. Classified authorization coming through in 13 minutes. The judge was about to learn exactly who he was dismissing. Ms. Harrington, Judge Sinclair's voice carried new edge, are you aware that impersonating a decorated veteran is a federal offense? The courtroom went dead silent. I am not impersonating anyone, Your Honor. Then explain that medal. Sinclair's tone could have frozen blood. Every eye in the room focused on the small bronze star, worn and faded from years of faithful wear. It was awarded to me for actions in combat. Laughter erupted from Morrison's table. Even some spectators smirked. A woman in a wheelchair claiming Navy decorations? The absurdity was obvious. Sinclair's mouth curved into a cruel smile. I've presided over cases involving Navy SEALs, Ms. Harrington. I know their caliber. I know what it takes to earn a Bronze Star. He paused, letting the implication hang. I suggest you remove that pin before I hold you in contempt of court. Prosecutor Whitley shot to his feet. Your Honor, this is completely inappropriate. Sit down, counselor. Sinclair's gavel cracked like a gunshot. This court will not be a stage for stolen valor. The whispers grew louder. Some spectators looked away, uncomfortable with the public humiliation. Others openly stared, watching the spectacle unfold. With deliberate calm that belied the fire building in her chest, Aria reached up and unpinned the bronze star. She placed it gently on the witness stand, the small metallic sound somehow echoing in the tense silence. Sinclair nodded with smug satisfaction. Now, given your obvious limitations, let's discuss your actual qualifications. The questioning deteriorated rapidly. Morrison, emboldened by judicial support, openly questioned how someone in her condition could possibly evaluate equipment meant for America's finest warriors. Each answer Aria attempted was cut short by Sinclair's interventions. Ms. Harrington, Morrison continued, isn't it true your consulting firm receives substantial payments from Titan defense competitors? No, that's false. Then how do you explain, Your Honor? A commanding voice cut through the courtroom noise. Admiral Hugo Patterson stood in the gallery, his uniform gleaming under the fluorescent lights, ribbons and decorations creating a rainbow of service across his chest. Permission to approach as an officer of the United States Navy. Sinclair, caught off guard by the interruption, hesitated. His face had gone pale, something like recognition or fear flickering across his features. Approach. Patterson walked forward with military precision, his footsteps echoing in the silent courtroom. He presented credentials to the bailiff, who handed them to Sinclair along with a sealed manila envelope. This witness has been testifying under limited disclosure protocols, Patterson stated clearly, his voice carrying to every corner of the room. Due to the unusual nature of today's questioning, I am authorized to release her complete service record. Sinclair accepted the envelope with hands that trembled slightly. He broke the classified seal, his eyes moving rapidly over the documents inside. With each page, his complexion shifted from pale to ashen gray. Your Honor, Whitley ventured after several long moments. May the court know the contents of that document? Sinclair looked up, meeting Aria's eyes for the first time with something entirely different. Not contempt now, but dawning horror. Admiral Patterson cleared his throat. With the court's permission, I'll summarize. Silence. Sinclair seemed unable to find his voice. Patterson took the silence as consent. Lieutenant Commander Aria Harrington served with Naval Special Warfare Development Group for 11 years. She completed 4 combat deployments and led 32 high-value target operations. She was awarded the Bronze Star with Valor, 2 Navy Commendation Medals with Combat V, and a Purple Heart. A collective intake of breath swept the courtroom. Commander Harrington was gravely wounded during Operation Seahawk 18 months ago. While leading the extraction of 20 hostages under heavy enemy fire, she sustained spinal injuries from an IED blast that left her paralyzed from the waist down. Patterson paused, his gaze finding Sinclair directly. One of those 20 hostages was Second Lieutenant Ivan Harrington, your nephew, Judge Sinclair. Gasps echoed through the gallery. Sinclair's face had gone completely white, his hands visibly shaking as they gripped the folder. Twice he tried to speak. No words came. Admiral Patterson wasn't finished. He produced a second document from his briefcase. This was declassified 20 minutes ago by direct order of the Secretary of the Navy. He handed it to the court clerk, who made copies for both legal teams. Communication records between Judge Marcus Sinclair and Titan defense executives spanning 14 months. Communications specifically discussing methods to discredit witnesses who might reference Operation Seahawk. Prosecutor Whitley scanned the document, his expression shifting from confusion to shock to barely contained fury. For the first time in her testimony, Aria felt the weight in the room shift. The Bronze Star on the witness stand seemed to catch the light differently now, not costume jewelry, but a sacred reminder of sacrifice. Her hand unconsciously moved to touch where the medal usually rested, and something fundamental changed in the courtroom's atmosphere. The gallery leaned forward. Even Morrison's confident smirk had vanished. The truth was emerging, and everyone could feel it. Your Honor, Whitley's voice cracked with outrage, I move for immediate mistrial on grounds of judicial misconduct. These communications indicate clear conflict of interest and potential criminal conspiracy. Sinclair's gavel slammed down with desperate force. This court is in recess. With respect, Your Honor, Admiral Patterson interrupted smoothly. I've been instructed to inform you that Chief Judge Morrison has been notified and is en route. These proceedings will continue under his supervision. As if summoned by his words, the courtroom doors opened. Chief Judge William Morrison entered, his expression grave. The bailiff called for everyone to rise. Sinclair remained seated, seemingly frozen behind his bench. Judge Sinclair, Morrison said quietly, chambers, now. As Sinclair was escorted out, his eyes met Aria's one final time. In them, she saw not just the terror of a man whose world was collapsing, but the dawning recognition of who she truly was, and what she'd sacrificed for his family. The courtroom erupted. Reporters rushed for exits. Attorneys huddled in urgent conferences. Through it all, Aria remained at the witness stand, outwardly composed despite the chaos around her. Admiral Patterson approached. Commander Harrington, he said formally, ensuring nearby spectators heard. On behalf of the Navy, I apologize for what you endured here today. No apology necessary, Admiral. Indeed, there is. His voice softened. Ivan has been trying to come forward about the helmet failures for months. His uncle made sure he stayed silent. Aria nodded, the first hint of emotion crossing her features. She'd never wanted Ivan involved, but corrupt systems left good people few choices. During the recess, Patterson provided context that Aria's classification restrictions had prevented her from sharing. Operation Seahawk had been a hostage rescue in Syria. 20 American contractors captured when their convoy was ambushed. Intelligence suggested they'd be executed within hours. Aria's team, 8 Navy SEALs, had inserted under cover of darkness. The compound was heavily defended, but they'd done harder extractions before. Everything went wrong when the helmets failed. Lieutenant Vincent Beaumont took point entering the main building. A sniper's bullet, standard ball ammunition, nothing exotic, punched through his M47 helmet like it was paper. He dropped instantly, brain matter spattering the wall behind him. Petty Officer Second Class Miguel Rodriguez was clearing stairs when shrapnel from a defensive grenade penetrated his helmet's side panel. The fragmentation protection that Titan claimed would stop anything short of armor-piercing rounds failed completely. Petty Officer First Class Sarah Chen lasted longest. Her helmet held until they reached the hostage room, then cracked along stress lines when debris from an explosion struck her head. She lived long enough to see the hostages freed, then died from traumatic brain injury in Aria's arms. 3 teammates, 3 M47 helmets, 3 catastrophic failures. Aria had worn identical equipment. Only luck, and Vincent's sacrifice drawing the sniper's attention, had kept her alive long enough to complete the mission. The IED that crippled her legs came during extraction. She was covering the hostage's retreat when the explosion threw her against a concrete wall. The spinal injuries were instantaneous and irreversible, but all 20 hostages made it out, including Second Lieutenant Ivan Harrington, who'd been captured while investigating supply chain irregularities in Titan defense contracts. Even then, the kid had been trying to do the right thing. In her hospital bed later, Aria had requested her Bronze Star be presented privately. No ceremony, no media attention. She'd pinned it to her hospital gown and worn it every day since. Not from pride, but from promise. Vincent, Miguel, and Sarah would never be forgotten. Their deaths would mean something. When she'd learned about Titan's lawsuit, about their claims that the M47 helmets met all specifications, that battlefield failures were due to operator error, Aria had volunteered to testify. She'd expected resistance from Titan's lawyers. She hadn't expected a federal judge to be on their payroll. When proceedings resumed an hour later, Chief Judge Morrison presided. Sinclair was notably absent. In light of extraordinary circumstances, Morrison announced, I am declaring a mistrial in United States versus Titan Defense Solutions. A new trial will be scheduled with different judicial oversight. Additionally, a criminal investigation has been opened regarding Judge Sinclair's conduct. He turned to Aria, his expression respectful. Commander Harrington, this court thanks you for your service, both today and to our nation. You are excused from testimony at this time, though you will be recalled for the new trial. Aria retrieved her Bronze Star from the witness stand, pinning it back to her lapel with steady hands. As she wheeled toward the exit, something remarkable happened. A Navy lieutenant in the front row stood at attention. Then another. Within moments, every service member in the courtroom, active duty and veteran alike, was standing, rendering silent salute. The corridor outside buzzed with reporters shouting questions, but Aria navigated through without comment. She'd nearly reached the private conference room when a familiar voice called her name. Commander Harrington. Ivan Harrington pushed through the crowd, his face flushed with shame and determination. Unlike his uncle, Ivan had honest eyes, though they now brimmed with guilt. Ivan, she acknowledged quietly. Can we talk? Privately? In the conference room, Ivan paced while Aria waited patiently. He'd filled out since she'd last seen him, no longer the terrified young officer she'd pulled from that compound. I had no idea my uncle was involved with Titan, he finally said, voice raw with emotion. When I started questioning the helmet failures, asking why they didn't meet spec, he told me he'd handle it. Said the military needed discretion, not scandal. And you believed him? He's my uncle. He raised me after my parents died. Ivan ran hands through his hair. When I found out about the lawsuit that you were testifying, I tried to come forward. Suddenly, I was transferred to a radar station in Alaska. Aria studied him, young, inexperienced, manipulated by family he trusted. You were investigating supply chain irregularities when you were captured, she said. It wasn't random. My signature was on the acquisition forms for those helmets. 3 men died because I didn't question Titan's claims closely enough. His voice broke. And you nearly died saving us. I did my job. You've never told anyone it was my oversight that led to the ambush, have you? All these years you've protected me. Before she could answer, Admiral Patterson entered with a man in a dark suit who introduced himself as Special Agent Martinez from the Department of Justice. Commander Harrington, Lieutenant Harrington, Martinez said, we'd like to ask you both about Judge Sinclair's communications with Titan Defense. This appears to involve obstruction of justice, witness tampering, and potentially bribery. The next several hours were consumed by detailed interviews. Aria recounted everything she knew about the helmet failures, the Operation Seahawk casualties, and her interactions with Judge Sinclair. Ivan, visibly shaken but resolute, detailed his uncle's pressure to remain silent, the sudden transfer to Alaska, and his blocked attempts to speak with investigators. By evening, most reporters had left, though a few persistent ones remained in the lobby. Aria declined Prosecutor Whitley's offer of a ride, preferring independence. As she exited the courthouse, Ivan waited by the accessibility ramp. I'm testifying at the new trial, he said without preamble. Full disclosure about the acquisition process, Titan's pressure tactics, everything. That could impact your career. I don't care. It's the right thing to do. He hesitated. After what you sacrificed, it's the least I can do. Aria studied him, seeing not the mistake he'd made, but the integrity he'd developed because of it. Sometimes our worst decisions lead to our strongest character, she said finally. Don't waste the opportunity. As Ivan walked away, Admiral Patterson approached, carrying a small presentation box. Commander, the Secretary wanted you to have this. He opened the box to reveal a Navy and Marine Corps medal. It should have been awarded after Seahawk, but certain influences prevented it. Sinclair, Aria surmised, among others, Titan has had powerful friends. Patterson's expression hardened. Things are changing rapidly. 3 more defense contractors are under investigation as of this morning. Aria accepted the medal with a respectful nod. What happens to Sinclair? He's already submitted his resignation. The criminal investigation will proceed, but his judicial career is finished. Patterson studied her thoughtfully. You could have exposed him any time over the past 18 months. Why didn't you? It wasn't about him, Aria replied. It was about making sure those helmets never failed another operator. That was always the mission. Patterson nodded, understanding. The mission continues. The new trial is scheduled for next month? Ready for another round? Always, Admiral. For the first time that day, Aria smiled. I still have work to do. Later that night, alone in her apartment overlooking the James River, Aria placed the newly awarded medal beside her bronze star on a small memorial shelf. Among the decorations and photographs was a folded flag and the service portrait of Lieutenant Vincent Beaumont, her team leader who had died drawing enemy fire, ensuring the hostages and his teammates could escape. Progress today, Vince, she whispered to the photograph. Slow, but forward. Her phone rang. Whitley with updates. Following Sinclair's resignation, 2 more Titan executives had been indicted. The evidence trail was expanding, revealing a pattern of equipment failures spanning nearly a decade. Your testimony broke it open, Whitley said. Whistleblowers have been coming forward all day, people who were afraid to speak before. Good, keep me posted. Justice, like healing, came in its own time. 6 months later, Aria navigated the marble halls of the U.S. Capitol, her wheelchair moving smoothly toward the congressional hearing on military procurement oversight. The hearing room filled quickly. Representatives from each military branch sat alongside procurement officials and defense industry executives. Notably absent were any representatives from Titan Defense, whose leadership now faced federal prison. Commander Harrington, Congresswoman Maria Santos greeted her. Thank you for agreeing to testify. When proceedings commenced, Aria found herself in a vastly different environment than Sinclair's courtroom. Here, her service record was acknowledged, her expertise unquestioned. The issue extends beyond Titan, she explained to the committee. Our procurement system prioritizes cost over performance. Contracts go to the lowest bidder with insufficient field testing. What do you recommend? Congressman Davis asked. Mandatory combat unit testing before deployment. Simplified reporting for equipment failures. And criminal liability for executives who knowingly provide substandard gear to service members. Near the hearing's end, Congresswoman Santos announced the committee's unanimous approval of comprehensive procurement reform, officially designated the Harrington Protocol. Applause erupted, catching Aria by surprise. She'd sought accountability, not recognition. Outside the Capitol, reporters waited. Aria answered questions with characteristic composure, deflecting personal praise while focusing on reform. As the press conference ended, she noticed Ivan Harrington in the crowd, now a captain, having been promoted after his own courageous testimony against Titan. The protocol's being implemented across all branches, he said quietly. Your mission's complete. Aria glanced toward the Capitol dome, thinking of Vincent and the others who hadn't made it home. No, she corrected gently. It's just beginning. That evening, Aria returned to Arlington National Cemetery. At Vincent Beaumont's grave, she placed a small replica of her bronze star against the white marble headstone. We did it, Vince, she said softly. The system that failed you, it's being fixed. The spring breeze carried cherry blossoms across the sacred ground, each petal a reminder of sacrifice that made freedom possible. True honor isn't announced. It's lived quietly, every single day. Sometimes the greatest warriors serve justice instead of serving in silence. When good people speak truth to power, even corrupt systems can change. But it takes someone willing to fight battles that others can't see, in courtrooms instead of combat zones, knowing that the mission never truly ends. It just evolves. Thank you to everyone who typed honor in the comments. Your support recognizes the countless veterans who carry invisible wounds and fight invisible battles every day. If you believe more people need to hear stories like this, please share this video and subscribe for more tales of dignity where we honor those who serve with quiet courage.